The rain fell gently on the shining streets of Rotar City, a place where neon lights reflected off puddles and strange creatures walked side by side. Evan, a lone human trader, walked through the crowd with a small bag of tools hanging by his side. He had come to this planet to sell human-made tech, simple machines that still amazed the alien world. But here humans were rare, often seen as outsiders, sometimes even feared. He stepped into a small cafe run by scaled aliens and ordered a drink. The air smelled of spice and metal, and voices in different tones filled the place. Evan smiled, trying to relax. For once, he felt almost normal. He paid for his drink, nodded to the owner, and stepped back into the crowded streets. He walked for only a few minutes when a sudden thought struck him like lightning. His wallet. His hand went to his pocket. It was empty. Evan froze. His wallet contained not just credits, but his ID card and ship access chip. Without it, he couldn't leave the city or even prove who he was. His heart started to race. Someone could already be using it. He turned back fast, pushing through the crowd, searching the street he had walked earlier. "Where is it?" he muttered under his breath, scanning the ground. The rain made it hard to see anything clearly. As he reached a corner near the cafe, he noticed a small shadow standing under a flickering streetlight. A small figure no taller than his waist. The shape was thin, trembling slightly. In its hand, something metallic glowed under the light. Evan stepped closer and froze. The figure was a child, but not human. Her skin was pale blue, marked with faint glowing veins. Her eyes, large, golden, and innocent, looked at him with both fear and courage, and in her tiny hand was his wallet. Evan stopped a few feet away. "Hey there," he said softly, keeping his voice calm. "That's mine. You found it?" The little alien girl blinked and held it tighter. You are human?" she asked, her voice trembling. Evan nodded slowly. "Yes, I am. Thank you for finding my wallet. I really need it." She looked down, then back up at him. The rain dripped from her dark hair. Her clothes were torn and dirty, far too thin for the cold night. She looked like she hadn't eaten for days. Evan took a step forward and stretched out his hand. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." "I just need that back," the girl hesitated. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move closer. Instead, she whispered something that made Evan's heart stop. "I'll give it back," she said softly, "but please, human, you have to help my mother." The sound of her words carried a kind of fear and hope that made the world around them go silent. The street noise faded. Evan stared at her, not sure what he just heard. "Help your mother?" he asked, confused. "What's wrong with her?" The girl looked around quickly as if afraid someone was listening. "She's sick," she said, and the guards won't let me near the clinics. They said she's not allowed medicine because she helped humans once." Evan frowned. "Because she helped humans?" The girl nodded, her eyes glistening. "They called her a traitor. Now no one will help us." For a moment, Evan couldn't speak. He had heard stories like this before, how aliens who worked with humans during the past wars were cast out afterward. But seeing the pain in this little girl's eyes made it real. He knelt down so his eyes met hers. "What's your name?" "Nira," she whispered. "I'm Evan," he said gently. "And where's your mother, Nira?" Nira looked behind her, toward a narrow street filled with shadows. "She's hiding. Please come. You can help her. You're human. They'll listen to you." Evan looked around the street again. The rain was heavier now, the night darker. This wasn't his problem. He could walk away. He could report his wallet as lost and get a new one. But as he looked at Nira, this small child clutching his wallet with shaking hands, he knew he couldn't do that. He sighed. "Okay, Nira, show me." Her golden eyes widened with relief. She handed him the wallet but grabbed his sleeve immediately, afraid he might change his mind. "Hurry," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "If they find us here, they'll take her away." Evan followed her through the narrow alleyways, the walls wet with rain and old rust. The smell of decay filled the air. They moved fast, past broken machines and quiet homes where people hid behind their doors. In that moment, Evan realized this was not just about a lost wallet anymore. Something bigger waited ahead. Somewhere beyond those dark alleys, a story of pain and courage was about to begin, one that would change his life, and maybe even his heart. The alleys of Rotar grew narrower as Evan followed the little alien girl, Nira. The air was thick with mist and the low hum of energy pipes running beneath the metal streets. Broken lights flickered on the walls, casting strange moving shadows. Every sound made Nira flinch. A passing patrol drone, a shout from far away. Even the hiss of steam from an exhaust vent. Evan walked carefully behind her, his boots splashing in shallow puddles. He could tell she knew these streets well, twisting and turning through back routes only locals used. But there was fear in her steps, and he could see she kept looking back to check if he was still following. Finally, she stopped before a dented steel door at the end of a narrow alley. It looked abandoned, its markings faded and half-burned. Nira placed her small hand on a scanner beside it. The machine sparked, barely functioning, but after a moment it beeped softly and the door slid open halfway with a screech. She motioned for him to follow and slipped inside. Evan ducked under the doorway and entered a dim room filled with old machinery and broken crates. The air smelled of metal dust and stale air. In the corner, lying on a thin blanket, was a woman, Nira's mother. Her skin was the same pale blue as her daughter's, but sickly and dull. Her breathing was shallow and her body trembled with weakness. The moment she heard footsteps, her golden eyes opened weakly. "Nira, what have you done?" She whispered, her voice soft and hoarse. Nira knelt beside her. "Mama, I found a human. He can help you, he will." The woman tried to sit up but winced in pain. Her gaze turned to Evan, filled with fear, confusion, and disbelief. "You brought a human here?" she said, barely audible. "Do you know what they'll do if they find out?" Evan stepped forward slowly. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Your daughter found my wallet. She asked me to come." The woman's expression softened slightly, though she still looked wary. "You shouldn't be here, human. The guards, they patrol this area every hour. If they see you, they'll arrest you too." "I've been through worse," Evan said quietly. "Tell me what's happening." Nira looked at her mother, pleading. "Please tell him, Mama, he can help." The woman took a long breath and closed her eyes. "My name is Lyra," she said weakly. "I used to work at the aid center near the human trade docks. I helped humans and aliens both. But after the war ended, helping humans became a crime. They called me a traitor. The clinics won't treat me. The pharmacies won't sell me medicine. They say I don't deserve it." Evan clenched his jaw. He'd heard about the riots after the human-Thrax war. Humans were blamed for bringing chaos, and anyone who supported them was punished. But hearing it directly from someone who suffered made his chest tighten. "What do you need?" he asked. Lyra's voice broke slightly. "A medicine called Seraphin X. It stops the infection spreading through my lungs. Only registered citizens can buy it, and humans still have permission to trade in that zone." "So that's why you wanted me," Evan said softly, glancing at Nira. The girl nodded quickly. "Please, human. They won't even let me near the clinics. They say my kind is dirty. I've tried everything. I even went to the trash markets." She paused, tears welling up in her eyes. "I just want my mother to live." Evan looked down, feeling the weight of the moment. He could walk away, stay safe, avoid trouble. This wasn't his fight, but as he looked at the child's trembling hands holding her mother's, something inside him stirred. He had seen war, death, and betrayal, but nothing compared to this raw, simple love. "I'll get it," he said at last. Nira blinked in surprise. You will?" Evan nodded. "But you have to tell me where to go." Lyra shook her head weakly. "You don't understand. The medicine is in the Black Spire market. It's a forbidden zone. Even humans are watched there. You'll be risking your life." "I've risked it before," he replied calmly. "This won't be the first time." Nira suddenly smiled for the first time, though her eyes were still wet. She grabbed his hand tightly. "Thank you, human. I knew you'd help us. I just knew it." Evan squeezed her hand gently. "We'll get your mother better. I promise." But even as he said the words, he noticed the flickering light near the door, movement outside, shadows. Someone was nearby. Lyra's eyes widened. "The patrols," she whispered. "They're early tonight." Evan turned off the light switch instantly. The room went dark, lit only by the glow of broken screens. He pressed a finger to his lips and Nira nodded, holding her mother's hand tightly. Outside, metallic footsteps echoed, followed by a deep voice. "Sector 9 sweep. No movement detected. Check the old shelter next." Nira's breath caught in her throat. Evan moved closer to the wall, hand on his pulse blaster, ready if things went wrong. The door creaked slightly under pressure as the guard tested it. For a long, tense minute, no one moved. Then, silence. The footsteps faded away into the night. When it was safe, Lyra let out a weak sigh of relief. Nira looked up at Evan. "They'll keep coming. Please hurry." Evan nodded slowly. "I will. Tomorrow I'll get what we need." As he stepped toward the door, Nira whispered, "Human, what's your name?" He turned back with a faint smile. "Evan." "Then thank you, Evan," she said softly. "You're the first one who didn't run away." Evan paused, looking at them one last time. The weak mother, the brave little girl, the flickering light, the silence of the dying city. It all burned into his mind. When he walked back into the cold rain that night, he knew his life had just changed forever. The next morning came quietly with heavy clouds covering the alien city. Rotar never really saw daylight. The sky was always gray, filled with smoke from engines and airships. Evan stood at the edge of a rooftop, staring at the endless maze of streets below. He had hardly slept. The sound of Nira's trembling voice and her mother's weak breathing echoed in his mind all night. He took a deep breath and looked at his wrist device. It showed restricted zones flashing red. The Black Spire market was in the center of those zones, marked as illegal trade area, high risk. Humans were allowed to enter, but barely. Most who went in never came back out. Still, Evan couldn't stop thinking about Nira's eyes, the way she had clutched his hand, desperate and hopeful. He had seen soldiers beg for mercy during the Human-Thrax War, but the fear of a child hit differently. It wasn't about war or politics. It was about love, he decided. He would go. Before leaving, Evan stopped by the shelter once more. Inside, Nira was feeding her mother tiny drops of water. Lyra was awake, her breathing steadier but her eyes dim with exhaustion. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered as soon as she saw him. "If they trace you here, you'll be marked as a sympathizer. You'll lose your trade license, maybe even your freedom." Evan crouched beside her and said calmly, "I've lost worse before." Nira looked at him eagerly. "You'll get the medicine?" He nodded. "I'll try." Lyra coughed weakly. "The medicine isn't easy to find, and there's something you need to know before you go." Evan leaned closer. Lyra's voice was faint, almost trembling. "Years ago, I worked in the human aid program. After the war ended, humans were being hunted and many were injured or starving. I helped smuggle food and medicine to them. The government called it betrayal." She paused to catch her breath, her eyes distant as if seeing memories. "I saved lives, but they destroyed mine. They took our home, our friends, everything. Nira was just a baby then. We ran. We've been running ever since." Evan stayed silent. The war had left scars on everyone, but hearing this made it personal. "What happened to the humans you helped?" he asked. "Some lived," Lyra said softly, "but most didn't. The world forgot them. And now helping a human or being helped by one is a death sentence here." Evan clenched his fists. "Then maybe it's time someone remembered them." Lyra looked at him sadly. "You remind me of a soldier I once knew, a human medic. He said the same thing before they executed him." Her words hit him hard, but he didn't show it. "I'll bring the Seraphin X," he said firmly. "Just stay hidden." Nira grabbed his sleeve. "Please come back." "Promise?" Evan smiled slightly. "I don't make promises I can't keep. But I'll try my best." He turned and left before his heart could soften too much. The path to the Black Spire market was long and dangerous. Evan wore a dark hooded cloak blending with the crowd. The city around him looked alive but sick, a giant machine powered by fear. Alien vendors shouted prices, security drones buzzed overhead, and wanted posters glowed faintly on the walls. One of them displayed a human face. He kept walking. The closer he got to the Black Spire, the quieter the streets became. The lights dimmed and the air grew heavy. Broken signs hung from the ceilings and strange creatures whispered deals in the corners. It wasn't just a market. It was a place where laws died. Evan entered through an archway guarded by two tall aliens with glowing armor. They scanned his ID chip. "Human trader?" One of them grunted. "You sure you want to go in there? Not many of your kind make it out." Evan gave a faint smile. "Guess I'll be the lucky one." The guard shrugged. "Your funeral." Inside, the market was chaos. Stalls made of scrap metal, flickering lamps, smoke everywhere. Traders sold everything. Stolen tech, human weapons, alien toxins. Some stalls even sold living creatures in cages. Evan walked past all of it, keeping his eyes sharp. He was looking for a sign, something that would lead him to the medicine. Then from the corner of his eye he saw a hooded alien woman whispering to a merchant. On the table beside them sat a small glowing vial labeled Seraphinex. He moved closer, pretending to browse. The merchant noticed him and smiled, a toothy, cruel grin. "Human, you have expensive taste. That's not for you. I can pay," Evan said calmly. "Not with credits," the merchant replied. "Only with something valuable. Or dangerous." Evan's pulse quickened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a human microcore old war tech. The merchant's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" Evan said flatly. "I want the vial." The merchant laughed softly. "You've got guts, human. Fine. 1 vial for that." As he handed over the medicine, a voice shouted behind him, harsh and cold. "Stop him." "Human traitor at stall 9?" Evan spun around. A group of alien guards was pushing through the crowd, weapons ready. He grabbed the vial and ran. The crowd exploded in panic. Smoke, screams, and chaos filled the air. He darted through narrow paths, heart pounding, with the guards right behind him. Shots flashed past his head, burning holes in the walls. He slid under a gate, rolled, and sprinted down a dark corridor. He didn't stop until he reached a broken tunnel leading back toward the old district. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard, the vial clutched tight in his hand. He had it. The cure. But as the sirens wailed in the distance, he realized the real danger had only just begun. Evan ran through the shattered tunnels, lungs burning as the sound of alarms echoed behind him. The flashing red lights from patrol drones cut through the darkness, searching for any trace of movement. His hand clutched the small glass vial. Seraphinex, glowing faintly blue, the cure that could save Lyra's life. He ducked behind a fallen pillar, breathing hard. "Just a little more," he whispered to himself. The streets above rumbled with the sound of armored carriers. The Black Spire guards didn't give up easily, especially when a human had stolen from them. Evan wiped the sweat from his face, looked around, and noticed a ventilation shaft above him. It was narrow, but he had no other choice. He pulled himself up, crawled through the cold metal tunnel, and followed the sound of dripping water. Finally, the vent opened into a small, dim passage that led back toward the city's slums, the same direction where Nira and Lyra were hiding. He dropped down quietly, landing on wet stone. The air smelled of rust and rain. He checked the vial again, safe inside his pocket. A faint smile crossed his lips. "Hang in there, Lyra," he murmured. "I'm coming." But as he turned the corner, 2 armored aliens blocked his path. Their helmets glowed red, and one raised a scanner. "Human detected," it said in a metallic voice. Evan cursed under his breath. He drew his sidearm and fired once. The shot hit the scanner, sparking a burst of light. The guard shouted and lunged forward. Evan dashed into a side tunnel, sliding over broken cables and ducking under pipes. Behind him, the guard's boots pounded louder. He reached an old drainage gate and kicked it open, stumbling into the open streets of the lower city. The rain was pouring hard now, thunder rolling in the distance. The crowd scattered as he ran, clutching the vial close to his chest. A beam of red light suddenly hit his shoulder. He felt the burn, but kept moving. His ship was too far. He had to get back to Nira first. He turned into a narrow street, heart racing, when a familiar voice called from above. "Evan, up here." He looked up and saw Nira leaning out from a broken balcony, her eyes wide with fear. She waved frantically. "Hurry!" Without thinking, he climbed the nearby pipes and pulled himself onto the ledge. The girl grabbed his hand and pulled him inside just as the guards' lights flashed past the alley. They ducked down, breathing heavily in the dark. "How did you—" he started, but Nira cut him off. "I saw them chasing you. I followed from the rooftops." "Mama said you'd come back." Evan managed a tired smile. "You're a brave kid." "I had to be," she said softly. "Mama's getting worse." They slipped through a hidden door behind the building and entered an old storage tunnel that led back to their shelter. The smell of damp air and oil filled the narrow passage. When they reached the small room, Lyra was lying exactly where he had left her, but now her breathing was shallow, her lips pale. The glow in her skin was fading. "Mama!" Nira cried, rushing to her side. Lyra's eyes opened weakly. "Nira, you shouldn't have gone out." "She didn't," Evan said gently, kneeling beside her. "I did." He pulled out the glowing vial and held it up. "Seraphinex." "I got it." Lyra stared at it in disbelief. "You actually found it?" Evan nodded. It wasn't easy. The Black Spire doesn't like losing stock. He quickly prepared the injector from his medkit and poured the medicine inside. As he pressed it to her arm, the blue liquid flowed through her veins like light spreading in water. For a moment, everything was still. Then Lyra's body relaxed, her breathing deepened, and the faint color returned to her face. Nira clutched her mother's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "She's getting better, isn't she?" Evan smiled. "She'll live." But before they could celebrate, a low rumble shook the shelter. The lights flickered. Outside sirens wailed again, closer this time. Lyra opened her eyes, panic returning. "They found us," she whispered. "The scanners must have traced the serum. It's illegal. They'll come here." Evan stood quickly, checking his weapon. "Then we move." He helped Lyra to her feet, supporting her on one arm while Nira guided them toward the back exit. "There's an old drainage tunnel," Nira said. "It leads to the underbay." They ran through the darkness, the sound of boots echoing behind them. Red lights began flashing on the walls, the patrols were closing in. Lyra stumbled, still weak, and Evan lifted her onto his back without hesitation. "Hold on tight," he shouted. Nira held his sleeve as they ran. Plaster fire hissed past, striking the walls around them. Sparks showered the tunnel. Evan fired back blindly, hitting a drone that exploded in a burst of light. Finally, they burst out into the cold rain again, emerging near the lower docks. An old transport ship lay half buried in the mud, half functional but powered enough to fly a short distance. Evan carried Lyra aboard and started the ignition manually. The ship coughed, sputtered, then roared weakly to life. Nira climbed in after him, panting. "Are we leaving the city?" He nodded. "We have to. They won't stop hunting you now." Through the cockpit window, he could see armored vehicles moving in the distance. He pushed the throttle and the ship lifted slowly off the ground, shaking violently. Below them, the city lights glowed red with sirens and chaos. As they rose higher into the stormy sky, Nira pressed her face against the window and whispered, "Mama's safe now, right?" Evan looked at her and said softly, "She will be, as long as I'm here." The ship broke through the clouds, disappearing into the storm, while far below, the patrol commander stared up at the sky and growled, "Find that human." Dead or alive, Evan didn't look back. He had done what most would never dare. He had defied a planet to save one alien life. But deep inside he knew. The fight was only beginning. The storm outside raged like a living creature, lightning flashing across the dark clouds as the small transport ship climbed higher. Inside, the hum of engines filled the silence. Evan sat at the controls, hands steady but eyes sharp, scanning the scanners for pursuers. Every few seconds, red lights flickered, enemy signals closing in and fading out again. Behind him, Nira sat beside her mother, wrapping her small hands around Lyra's arm. The Seraphim X medicine was working. The pale color of her skin was slowly fading, replaced by faint blue warmth. Her breathing grew deeper, steadier, though exhaustion still clung to her like a shadow. "Her pulse is stronger," Evan said softly, checking the readings from his portable medkit. "She'll make it." Nira smiled faintly, tears glimmering in her golden eyes. "You really did it, human. You saved her." Evan turned slightly, meeting her gaze. "She saved you once, didn't she?" "Now we're even." Nira tilted her head. "You talk like Mama used to before everything changed. Back then she said humans were kind." Evan looked back toward the storm outside. "Some of us still are." The ship rattled as a gust of wind slammed against it. Evan steadied the controls and adjusted the course toward a quieter sector of the planet, a deserted area near the old mining fields. It wasn't safe, but it would buy them time to rest. He landed the ship gently behind a ridge of dark rock. The engines cooled down with a low hiss. Outside, rain poured in steady sheets, masking them from any sensors above. Inside, Lyra stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, golden irises faintly glowing in the dim light. Where are we?" she whispered. "Safe for now," Evan said. "We're off-grid. They won't find us easily." Lyra tried to sit up, but Evan stopped her gently. "Easy. You're still weak." Her gaze moved from him to her daughter. "Nira, you shouldn't have followed him. You could have been caught." Nira shook her head. "I couldn't leave you. He needed help." Lyra smiled faintly, sad and proud at the same time. "You're too much like me." Evan leaned back against the wall of the cabin, studying her. "You knew they'd come after you, didn't you? Even before I got the medicine." Lyra's expression darkened. Yes, the moment anyone trades in Seraphim X, the system alerts the patrols. It's coded that way. The cure itself is legal, but not for people like me. Evan frowned. That's not medicine. That's control. Lyra's eyes met his, tired but sharp. You think war ended when humans signed peace? It never ended. They just changed the battlefield. Now it's laws, trade, and silence. Her words hung heavy in the air. Nira looked between them, confused but listening. Evan stood and paced slowly. If that's true, then they'll keep chasing us. Not just for breaking laws, but to make an example. Yes, Lyra whispered. They'll brand you as a sympathizer. You'll lose everything. Evan gave a small laugh, dry and cold. I didn't have much to lose anyway. Lyra studied him carefully, seeing something in his eyes that she recognized. Loss, weariness, and quiet defiance. You were a soldier once, weren't you? He nodded slowly. Human Defense Corps. I left after the Thrax War ended. I saw too many die for things that didn't matter anymore. Lyra nodded weakly. Then you understand why I couldn't stop helping, even when it cost me everything. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Only the sound of the rain tapping against the hull remained. Then a soft beep from the console broke it. Evan walked over and checked the scanner. His expression tightened. They're tracking the ship's signal, he said. We've got maybe 15 minutes before a patrol sweeps this area. Nira's eyes widened. Can't we hide? We can't hide forever, Evan replied. We'll have to move again. Lyra coughed weakly. There's an old settlement north of here, past the Black Ridge. Humans used to live there before the war drove them away. No one goes near it now. You can hide us there. Evan nodded. That'll work. I'll start the engines. But before he turned away, Lyra grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Listen to me carefully, human. You don't understand what's coming. Evan frowned. What do you mean? She looked at him with fear and sorrow. The Black Spire market isn't just a place for trade. It's a cover for something larger. The medicine you took, it's not only for healing. They use it to control the infected. To track those who've been given it. That's how they'll find us, Evan froze. You're saying the serum itself is marked? Yes, she breathed. They'll know you used it. The ship trembled as distant thunder rolled. But Evan knew it wasn't just thunder. He checked the sensors, multiple signals approaching fast. He cursed under his breath. They're here already. Nira gasped and clung to her mother. What do we do? Evan rushed to the controls, flipping switches. We run. Again. The ship roared to life, engines glowing through the rain. Lyra struggled to sit upright, fear in her eyes. You don't understand, Evan. They're not coming just to arrest us. They'll destroy the whole area if they think a human's helping me. Evan looked back at her and gave a half smile. Then they'll have to catch me first. The ship lifted from the ground, engines screaming against the storm. Lightning flashed as they shot into the sky, leaving behind trails of vapor. Through the window, Nira saw the patrol ships rising in pursuit, dozens of them, their lights like red stars in the night. She gripped her mother's hand and whispered, He's not going to stop, is he? Lyra smiled weakly. No, my love. Humans never do. Outside, the storm swallowed them all. The hunted, the helpless, and the one man who refused to give up. The sky burned red as the storm split open with roaring thunder. Evan's small transport ship darted between clouds, chased by a swarm of glowing patrol craft. Energy bolts flashed past the windows, each one lighting up the cockpit like fire. The old ship groaned under pressure, warning alarms blaring in harsh tones. Evan gripped the controls tighter, his eyes fixed on the radar. Hold together, old girl, he muttered. Just a few more miles. Behind him, Nira clung to her mother, eyes wide in terror. They're getting closer, she cried. I see them, Evan replied, voice calm but hard. We're not done yet. Lyra, weak but conscious, looked toward the glowing clouds outside. You can't outrun them, human. Their ships are faster. Evan smirked faintly. Maybe, but they don't know the shortcuts I do. With a sharp pull, he dove the ship down through a dense thundercloud. Lightning crackled all around, briefly outlining the patrol ships above. The sensors screamed in protest, but Evan didn't slow down. He flipped a few switches and the ship's lights went dark, plunging them into shadows. Nira gasped. Why'd you turn off the lights? So they can't track us, he said. We'll disappear into the storm's energy field. It scrambles scanners. Outside the world was chaos, rain slamming against the hull, blue lightning twisting like serpents. Evan's eyes never left the flickering radar. 1, 2, 3 blips vanished. He smiled to himself. They lost our trail, but the relief lasted only seconds. A sudden explosion rocked the ship. The back thruster sparked, throwing the vessel into a spin. Neera screamed as the room tilted violently. Evan fought the controls, shouting, "Hold on!" The ship dropped through the storm, spinning toward the surface. Alarms shrieked, panels burst, sparks filled the cockpit. At the last second, Evan hit manual stabilizers. The ship leveled, barely, before crashing through a forest canopy with a deafening roar. Metal tore against branches, leaves, and fire filled the air. Then impact, silence followed. Smoke rose from the wreckage. Evan coughed, blood on his lip, and unbuckled himself. "Everyone okay? I think so," Neera whispered. She was shaken but unharmed. Lyra lay still but breathing. Her eyes fluttered open weakly. Evan helped them out of the smoking ship. Rain poured heavily again, hissing against the flames. He pulled a tarp from the cargo compartment and made a small shelter under a large tree. The forest glowed faintly under bioluminescent moss, giving the world an eerie green light. Lyra winced as she sat against the trunk. "We won't be safe for long," she said softly. "They'll scan the crash site," Evan nodded. "I'll move the beacon and make it look like we died in the explosion." He limped back to the ship, dragging a heavy box with him. Inside were signal flares, the last of his rations, and a few fuel cells. He set one flare near the wreck, activated a timed detonation, and returned quickly. Minutes later, a small explosion lit the forest, sending black smoke spiraling upward. "That should fool them," he said, settling beside them again. Neera crawled closer to him, shivering under the rain. "Will we really be safe, human?" Evan looked down at her. "For now." She studied his face for a moment. "You could have left us. Why didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "Because I've seen what happens when people walk away from those who need them. I won't do that again." Her small hand gripped his tightly. "You're different from the others." "Maybe," he said quietly. Hours passed in uneasy silence. The rain slowed and faint moonlight broke through the clouds. Evan sat awake, keeping watch while the two slept. But as he stared into the forest, he noticed something. Strange lights moving between the trees. They weren't patrol drones. These lights moved softly, silently, almost alive. He reached for his weapon, but Lyra's weak voice stopped him. "Wait, don't shoot!" "They're not soldiers," Evan frowned. "Then who are they?" She took a trembling breath. "They're my people." From the mist, tall figures emerged. Alien shapes similar to Lyra's kind, but with markings glowing faint gold. Their eyes shone with sorrow and strength. The leader, cloaked in deep blue, stepped forward. "Lyra," the figure said, voice smooth like wind through glass. "You survived." Lyra's eyes widened. "Elyon, I thought you were gone." The alien bowed slightly. "The Council exiled me too for helping humans. But we've been watching. When you used the Seraphim X, we detected the signal. We came to protect you before the patrols arrived." Evan stepped between them instinctively. "Protect? You tracked us just like the patrols did." Elyon's golden eyes turned to him. "And yet we are here, human, not to harm, but to save. The Black Spire hunts those who still believe in peace between our species. You helped one of us. Now they will mark you as an enemy of both sides." Evan's jaw tightened. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Elyon replied softly, "that the fight is bigger than you think. The Black Spire isn't just a market, it's a weapon. They plan to use humans and aliens against each other again. And Lyra," he paused, "she was one of the few who knew how to stop them." Evan turned to Lyra, eyes wide. "You knew?" Lyra looked down, ashamed. "I helped design the cure, but I didn't know they would twist it into something that could control people." Evan's mind raced. The medicine, the tracking, the endless pursuit, it all made sense now. Before he could speak again, Elyon raised a hand. "We must move. The patrols will find this place soon. Come with us, human. If you truly wish to protect them, follow me into the deep forest. There's a sanctuary beneath the roots of this world." Evan hesitated for only a second, then nodded. "Lead the way." As they vanished into the glowing mist, Neera whispered, "Where are we going?" Evan looked down at her and said softly, "Somewhere safer. I hope." Behind them, the wreck of the ship burned quietly. A false grave for the man the Black Spire thought dead. But in truth, the human was still alive, walking deeper into the unknown, with a secret that could change two worlds forever. The forest whispered like a living dream. Bioluminescent vines hung from tall trees, their glow painting the mist in blue and green. Evan walked carefully behind Elion, one hand supporting Lyra, the other holding Nira close. They moved through a tunnel of light that pulsed gently under their steps, leading to something hidden deep beneath the ground. Soon, the narrow path opened into a wide underground cavern. The air shimmered faintly, filled with the hum of alien energy. At the center stood a giant crystal structure, a fusion of human tech and alien craft half buried in roots and moss. Around it, more of Lyra's people moved silently, repairing machinery, tending to wounded, watching with wary eyes. "This is it," Elion said softly, "the last sanctuary for those who refuse to hate." Evan looked around, stunned. "You built all this? Under the forest?" Elion nodded. "The Council hunts us, but even they cannot sense the life energy that hides us here. The planet itself shields those who wish for peace." Nira's eyes widened in wonder. "It's beautiful," Lyra smiled faintly. "It's more than that, my love. It's hope." But the moment of peace didn't last long. One of the sentries rushed forward. "Elion, patrol ships are spreading across the ridge. They're scanning the ground. They must have traced the crash site." Evan's stomach dropped. "How long before they find this place?" "Not long," Elion replied grimly. "Their machines can't see through the roots, but they'll use fire to clear the forest. Once that happens..." Lyra's hand tightened around Evan's arm. "They'll burn us all." Elion turned toward her, his voice urgent. "You know how to stop them, Lyra. The control beacon, they'll use it to broadcast their purge command through the serum network. If you disable it, the serum will be free. They won't be able to track or control anyone ever again." Evan looked between them. "Then let's do it. Where is this beacon?" Elion's golden eyes dimmed. "Inside the main Black Spire tower." Silence filled the cavern. The tower was the heart of enemy territory, heavily guarded, impossible to reach by ship without being shot down. Lyra looked at Evan, her face pale but determined. "You shouldn't have to risk your life again." He shook his head. "You said the cure tracks people. You, Nira, maybe thousands more. If we don't stop it now, they'll never stop hunting you." Elion placed a small cube in Evan's hand. "This will help you. It's a pulse disruptor. Get it close to the beacon core and trigger it manually." Evan studied the device. "Manually?" "Yes," Elion said. "It has no remote control. Once you start it, you'll have 30 seconds to escape." Lyra's eyes filled with fear. "You can't, that's suicide." Evan smiled faintly. "Not if I'm fast." He turned toward the exit, but Nira suddenly ran to him and hugged him tightly. "Please come back," she whispered. "You said we'd be safe." He knelt down and placed his hand on her head. "You will be safe. I just need to make sure it stays that way." Lyra stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Evan, if we survive this, you'll always have a place with us." He hesitated, then nodded gently. "Then I'll make sure you get that chance." By nightfall, Evan stood on the edge of the city again. The storm had passed, but smoke from the crash still lingered. Patrols moved like shadows across the rooftops. The Black Spire tower loomed above everything, dark metal rising into the clouds, pulsing faintly with blue light. He climbed through the old maintenance tunnels, bypassing sensors, moving like a ghost through the shadows. His every step echoed with the memory of Nira's voice and Lyra's fragile hope. At last, he reached the core chamber. The beacon stood before him, a massive column of light and metal humming with energy. Data streams ran across the walls like living veins. He pulled the disruptor from his belt, pressed a few keys, and watched the blue light begin to blink. The hum around him grew louder, the floor shaking beneath his feet. 30 seconds, he whispered. Footsteps echoed behind him. A squad of guards burst in, shouting in alien tongues. Evan spun, firing his blaster, hitting two before taking cover behind a support beam. The pulse timer ticked down. 20 seconds. He fired again, but there were too many. Energy bolts flew past, searing the walls. 15 seconds. He ran toward the beacon, ducking low. A blast hit his shoulder, burning through his jacket, but he didn't stop. He slammed the disruptor onto the beacon's control node and hit the final switch. The world flashed white. 10 seconds. He stumbled toward the exit, blood dripping down his arm. The guard screamed as the beacon overloaded, sending waves of blue light across the tower. The energy grid cracked, sparks raining from the ceiling. 5 seconds. Evan reached the door, but the blast threw him off his feet. The tower erupted in light, a massive pulse that spread across the sky like a second sun. Then everything went silent. Far away, deep in the sanctuary, Lyra gasped as the ground trembled. The lights in the cavern flickered once, then steadied. Elian looked at his scanner, eyes wide. It's done. The network is gone. The control signal is dead. Nira ran outside, staring at the sky. Through the cracks in the roots, she saw a great light fading on the horizon. Her eyes filled with tears. He did it. Lyra stepped beside her, weak but standing. Yes, she whispered. He kept his promise. Days later, word spread across Rotar. The beacon was destroyed, the Black Spire crippled. The patrols retreated. The people whispered about the mysterious human who vanished in the explosion. No one ever found his body, but every night, when the twin moons rose, a faint blue light appeared in the northern sky, like a star that shouldn't exist. And in the quiet of the sanctuary, Nira often looked up at that light and whispered, "Thank you, human." Lyra would place her hand over her daughter's heart and smile softly. He's not gone, my love. He's part of the light now. And somewhere beyond the stars, the legend of the human who defied an empire began. A story whispered across planets, reminding both humans and aliens of a truth too often forgotten. Kindness is stronger than fear, and humanity never dies.